We've been locked in our classroom for days. Our teacher's acting very strange. Day 1. We had just opened up our textbooks to Chapter 8 when the alarms blared overhead. A red strobing light spun at the door. Metal slats slid down the wall to seal us in. The others started to stir and panic at their desks. Now, class. I'm sure this is probably just a drill," Mr. Jonas said, and he held his hands up to try to soothe the crowd. Just when he was about to open his mouth, Evie came over the intercom. "A level 3 contagion in the south quadrant of campus. Lockdown protocol is now in effect. Isolation protocol is now in effect. Level 3 contagion in south quadrant of campus. Lockdown protocol is now in effect. Isolation protocol is now in effect." Oh no. The teacher suddenly looked very pale, and he started to panic a little bit himself. Day 3. I slid my rook across the tiled chessboard to overtake Patricia's bishop. She stuck out her tongue in defiance as I removed it from the board. I smirked, and then shoved another saltine cracker in my mouth. Mr. Jonas said we shouldn't be there much longer. It would probably just taken the CDC a while to quarantine and eradicate the contagion. He said it's a pretty nasty virus, and that's why they're keeping us locked in the classroom. We have enough snacks for about another day or so. It's been difficult to ration everything properly when all we have is crackers, candy, and spray canned cheese. Overall, though, we're keeping our hopes up. It's all we could really do. Staying positive, for now. Day 5. The room was starting to smell pretty foul. We designated some buckets over in the corner as a bathroom, and they were about half full and beyond putrid. We ran out of food last night. My stomach is rumbling with hunger, but I do my best to ignore it. I didn't really feel like playing chess or reading anymore. Instead, I just napped at my desk as much as possible just to pass the time. I was hoping that any moment I'd be awoken to the doors opening so I can go home. I miss my parents. Mr. Jonas is losing his composure too. We had been pretty put together up until this point, ensuring that we were all calm. But his eyes started to look a little wild now. He kept pacing around the room talking to himself. A few times I heard him cursing under his breath, and then he was reciting prayers. Man, I really hope we get out of here soon. Day 8. Bang! 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 A pounding sound coming from the other side of the classroom pulled me from my dreams. Bang! 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 I stayed still long enough to appear asleep, but I cracked my eyes just enough to watch the biology teacher smashing a chair against a steel door over and over and over. Bang! 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 He's really losing it. "Let us out of here!" Mr. Jonas screamed and tossed the chair at the table. "I cannot do that, sir. A level 3 contagion had been detected. I have sealed off the affected area, but you must stay isolated for your safety." The robotic voice hummed over the speakers. He screeched profanities at the camera. Some of the other boys were becoming really aggressive as well. There were some fights over the last couple of days. Also, some hands were going where they shouldn't be going, behind the fake plants and behind the lab equipment. It seemed as if we were slowly devolving, becoming one of those enclosures of chimpanzees like the one you see at the zoo, but hungrier. We needed out, or something terrible is going to happen. Day 10. We have been on a diet of tap water for the past 5 days. I feel dizzy every time I stand up from my desk. The room starts to spin and I'm almost going to black out. I keep my footing by sheer willpower alone. I have this irrational fear that if I pass out, I'll be eaten by my classmates. Like a hungry pack of hyenas on a gazelle, feasting on my innards as they spilled across the floor. It sounded crazy if I said it out loud, but When I looked around the room, I saw how hungry we all were, all the hungry faces. I didn't think the idea was that far-fetched at all. Mr. Jonas hasn't said a word in over 12 hours. He's just sitting at his desk, carving something into the surface with some X-Acto knife. For the first time today, I had the thought that maybe we're not going to make it out of this. Maybe we're all going to die in this classroom. I hung my head, and I cried. Day 13. Mr. Jonas, stop! Micah cried. Don't you see? We have to do this. We need food to survive. It's Survival 101. When the pack is suffering and food is scarce, they turn on the weakest member. It's simple biology. Survival of the fittest. Mr. Jonas wrapped his hands around Trevor's neck, squeezing so hard that the boy's eyes were about to pop out of his skull. Trevor struggled to breathe. He was frail and really small for his age. Micah grabbed a large beaker from the table and lifted it high over his head. Mr. Jonas, stop! Now! Don't make me do this! But the teacher was long gone. His eyes gleamed with the delight as the drool dripped out of his mouth and down his chin. He was salivating at the thought of the meal. I jumped to my feet as Micah brought the beaker down hard as he could on top of Mr. Jonas's head. It shattered into pieces, knocking the teacher out cold. I helped him push the teacher off Trevor. The poor kid is wheezing and gasping for breath. Tears were streaming down his face. You're all right. It's okay. You're okay. Micah patted him on the back, trying to calm him down as the kid wailed. Suddenly, there was a scream. Like a war cry, Mr. Jonas was airborne. He leapt across the desk and plowed into Micah. They both went sprawling across the tile. Micah resisted, but Mr. Jonas ended up on top and began dropping his elbows down viciously on Micah's face, causing blood to spew out of his nose and mouth. Static. Static filled my mind. I didn't think, I only reacted. I reached down and I picked up a hunk of broken glass from the beaker. I grabbed Mr. Jonas's shaggy hair and pulled it down, and I pulled the glass through the meat of his throat as hard as I could. I had never seen so much blood before. It poured like a waterfall across Micah. Mr. Jonas fell to one side one more time, but he didn't get up again. I stared at my blood-soaked hands. I felt nothing. No remorse, no fear, just static. Suddenly, the metal slats retracted into the ceilings and the doors swung open. Lockdown protocol has been lifted. Please continue on with your regular schedule. Lockdown protocol has been lifted. Please continue on with your regular schedule. A cheery robotic voice seemed to be distant and out of place now. The other students gathered around me, just staring at the pool of blood. I think it was the hunger, but a part of me wanted to know what it tasted like. I think the others did too. Thankfully, before that could happen, a man in a suit strolled in the classroom. Hello, class. His perfect teeth gleamed under the LEDs. Before we could say anything, a huge team of adults in overalls poured into the room. Some began taking photos of everything, and the others started to clean up Mr. Jonas. One man with gray hair dropped a large box onto the teacher's desk and opened it. He started throwing around fresh fruit and granola bars to all the students. We devoured everything he gave us. I started to feel more like myself after a couple of bananas and a few granola bars. They tasted like heaven, like salvation. The first man with the nice teeth and the expensive suit waited until we were all done before he addressed us again. I know, it's been 13 days, guys. I appreciate y'all hanging in there. I've alerted each one of your parents and you've been cleared to go home. The classroom erupted in cheers and we all hugged each other. Even Mike, covered in the gore, danced around excitedly. You'll all be able to go home soon, but first we just need a little debrief before you can go. I'm going to set up in the counselor's office, and Mr. Moses here is going to bring you down one by one to give your account of what happened during isolation. We all nodded our heads in agreement. Anything to get out of here. Mr. Moses, the man with the gray hair and the snacks, took us down one by one, and we spilled our guts about what happened to the man with the nice teeth. When I told my story, it felt like I was still numb. Even when describing how I killed Mr. Jonas, I felt nothing. It wasn't until I had gotten home that evening that I broke down and I wept. Once I was in my mother's arms, I cried and I cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I ate more food than I had ever done. I shoveled pasta down my throat and I thought my stomach would burst. It was good. It was good to be feeling full, to be human again. Years later, while I was at a university, a whistleblower had leaked what had happened, what we had endured at the school. It was a government cover-up for a top-secret experiment. There was no virus, no contagion. It had been an experiment to test the AI system in the school, but then it morphed into a social experiment to see how long we could go before somebody was murdered or severely maimed or harmed. They were testing the boundaries of civility and moral character under immense pressure, just in case there was a real issue with the code of the AI, and the scenario became a reality somewhere. When I killed Mr. Jonas, the experiment ended. The news made me sick to my stomach. I was angry and disgusted for weeks. I'm okay with it now, though. See, Trevor may have been small, the weakest member of the Pride perhaps, but he was also a genius. With his hacking expertise, we were able to locate Mr. Nice Teeth and Mr. Moses. It's been 6 days so far, and every time they scream and hit the door with the chair, I just can't help but smile. It's a little experiment a few of us are conducting. It'll end when someone is murdered or severely maimed or injured. Maybe. Guys, thank you for listening. Also, again, I appreciate your patience. I keep trying to do these more. I got 2 out this month. That's not bad. That's not bad for me. But thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave a like, leave a comment, share it out on your social media, as this channel is demonetized for God knows what reason. I appreciate any support, whether it's a like or a share, or if you become a patron. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time with me. Thank you for hanging out. Have a lovely weekend.